Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Getting Paid Now and in the Future. Also, just waiting for some people to log on. Let's just have a quick look at the Zoom features for anybody who's unfamiliar. So at the bottom of the screen, if you're having trouble with your audio settings, you can select and test your speakers. They are down in the bottom left in the audio settings. Feel free to submit any questions via the Q&A button, please, rather than the chat button, just so that we have all the questions in one place. And we'll answer the questions at the end of the webinar. And if for any reason you need to leave the meeting, then just click Leave Meeting. And when you exit the webinar, it'd be great if you could give us your feedback. It won't take long to do that, I promise you that. So welcome and thank you everyone for giving up your time today to listen into this webinar. I appreciate that we're living in unprecedented times with huge uncertainty and obviously concern for all. But we want to know that we're here for you, albeit remotely, like a lot of businesses, to give you whatever support we can to get through these difficult times. And I certainly hope that you find the time today, that spend today together, valuable. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Ware of Ware Associates, where we see our core purpose as quite simply just to make business owners' lives better. And hopefully after today's webinar, we'll have gone some way to make everyone's life a little bit better by helping you decide what actions you need to take to get through the current situation with the least amount of damage as possible to yourself, your family and your business. So with this in mind, we're here to share with you practical things you can do to minimise the downside on your cash flow at this time. But before we kick off in earnest, I just want to give you a thought for the day. When a recession does materialise, many experts agree that ready cash is the oxygen that every small business owner requires to survive. Well, of course, cash flow can be very difficult in times like this. Today, I want to share with you some practical things you can do to preserve that cash flow. And remember, profitable businesses can and do go bust in times like these. And that's not because of lack of profits, but it's because of a lack of cash. So firstly, I'd strongly encourage everybody to take some notes, and in particular, write down any actions that you're going to take after today's webinar. Because if you don't take notes and you don't write down your actions, I can pretty much guarantee you that you'll forget them. So here's what we're going to cover today. Firstly, we'll cover some mindsets that will help you get in the right mind to tackle any cash flow issues you're currently experiencing now and in the future. We'll then talk about what your debtor system and best practice in this area. And then we'll quickly talk about what you need to do going forward from here to maximise your own cash flow. Have a quick recap and update on the current announcements of support from the government. They announced a further one yesterday. Then we'll talk about some of the actions you could take after attending this webinar, together with several options of how we could support you further, including details of our 4-week COVID continuity programme. And then finally, we'll look at any questions that have been submitted and answer them. So with our thought for the day in your mind, cash being the oxygen that every business needs to survive. And before we talk about strategies you can adopt, let's talk about 3 mindsets you need to have. First, you need to be empathetic. Secondly, you need to approach your debtor management with backbone and heart. And thirdly, you need to accept that it's okay to sell in these times, so long as you're solving problems for your customers that they have right now. It's not about product pushing, it's about solving problems. So remember, you need to put your own oxygen mask on first, because at the end of the day, if your business falls over, no one wins. So be empathetic. Of course, it's not as simple as saying, right, I've got the oxygen mask on me, the customers must pay and we won't help. We've heard some horror stories, businesses who are stopping credit and ramping up their debt collecting without any thought for how their customers are coping. You know, and I'm sure nobody on this webinar has done that. So before we work out the best way to keep the cash flow going, we need a framework, and this framework starts with empathy, which we define as the ability to see things from your customer's perspective and being prepared to do something about it. Hence the idea of giving customers options as to how they can pay you. So, you know, ask your customers how they're coping, ask how their business is going, think about the loyalty that they've shown you, and maybe now's a good time for you to repay some of that by giving them some options of paying you. So work through this list as a framework for you to follow, but also make sure your team are working through this framework to make sure that it's cohesive throughout the business. Having some backbone and heart. So long as we're being empathetic and giving clients choices, we can talk about how we're going to get paid. A useful mindset here is remembering to have backbone and heart. I'm going to start with heart. Heart is being empathetic. It's being flexible and considerate in your approach. So, you know, think about your purpose statement. You know, ours is to make business owners' lives better. You know, consider options of payment, whether that's deferring payment or just working out a payment plan, or helping your client maybe get some funding or something. You know, and be considerate and flexible in your approach. Really, you know, understand their current situation. But at the same time as having heart and being empathetic, you need to have some backbone, you know, because at the end of the day, you're running a business too, and you need cash flow. And you've got to, you know, realize it's okay to be paid for the value you provide, because at the end of the day, you're running a business. And if you're not getting paid for that value, then, you know, your business will not survive either, and then nobody wins. So having some backbone and heart. Final mindset in these times, especially if your service provider is, obviously, like I said, it's okay to sell. So long as your product or service is solving a problem for your customers, and so long as you're going to be paid for the work that you do. The spin cycle is a line of questions, starting with situation questions, then moving to problem questions. And then impact, and then needs. So let's have a little bit of fun here, a little bit of a fun example. Say you're a hairdresser, current situation that we're all in. You might ask questions like, you know, how are you coping with being at home right now? Are you spending a lot of time on video calls? Then that might, you know, lead into a problem question of, you know, do you feel that every day is starting to feel like a bad hair day? And then the impact could be, you know, well, how does, you know, having a bad hair day every day, how does that make you feel? You know, so then the client explains how they're feeling, and then, you know, your next steps questions could be, you know, I know we can't be certain when this is all going to be over, but should we book you in for a full colour and cut in the first week we reopen? You know, obviously just having a bit of fun here, but what's important is that it's absolutely okay to sell as long as you're offering a way of solving a current problem for your customers. You know, so we all need to get in this mindset that, you know, we've still got businesses to run. So now we've talked about the three mindsets you need to have. We can talk more specifically about your debtor system in these challenging times. Firstly, we'll talk about best practice. Then I'll share a guide and some scripts, and then I'll talk some more about some credit control processes. So essentially, nothing should change. We just need to dial up our empathy. By engaging more with your customers around their particular circumstances, you can obviously tweak your process just for the customers who are going to struggle. Remember that not all your customers are at great risk here, and certainly COVID-19 shouldn't give them an excuse not to pay. I mean, we've heard some really bad stories about people using it as an excuse, and it really, you know, if your business has got money to pay, it should pay. Because at the end of the day, if somebody's done the work or supplied the product to you, then you need to pay for that. You're running a business and you need to be paid. You know, we should all be using paperless systems. Whilst at the moment we're getting post here, hopefully that'll continue, but you know, it's probably delayed and will come under increasing strain. So paperless is obviously a great way to go. So if you're not paperless, I'd certainly recommend it's a top priority, so that your customers know exactly how much to pay you and where to pay you by. Best practice in credit control is that we have great guidance notes for the team members responsible for your credit control and debt collecting. We've got things like flow charts, scripts and templates, and I'll show you these shortly as we put a package together that we'll share with you. Now, many problems with debtors actually come about because we've not put great systems in place around giving credit in the first place. So we'll talk about credit checks and outsourcing shortly. So that's sort of, you know, best practice, having systems in place that are followed. So here's a snippet of the guide and credit control script that we put together. As I said, happy to share this with you free of charge off the back of this webinar. Just make sure you give us your feedback at the end of the webinar. I'll just quickly share this with you just so you can have a quick look at it. So if we do new share. So we've got the accounts receivable call script, you know, how to introduce yourself, questions to ask, what happens if they say yes, that they can pay, what happens if they say no, they can't pay, you know, and then what if you've got to leave some messages, you know, what should they be? All good suggestions in there. Then credit management guide, you know, things to consider, your terms of trade, whether they need updating and stuff, billing and payments, you know, what's that all going to look like, your terms and stuff, and then debtor management, anybody who doesn't pay you. So, you know, lots of good information in these two guides that you can very easily implement in your business without too much effort. So that's the guidance scripts, the call scripts and credit management guide that we're more than happy to share with you. So credit control services, you know, it's more important to remember that credit control is not just about following up your debtors. You know, it's a complete system from when you take a customer on through to when they pay you. And as I mentioned previously, we recommend that you outsource your credit management. We not only believe that it's best practice, but it will actually free up your time as well and relieve some stress from you. But it's essential that you build a relationship with your chosen provider so that they can understand your core values and your style of communication and the language that you use. And having said that outsourcing is best practice, it's not an ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the current climate, you can't just suddenly outsource credit management for customers who are going to really struggle in these difficult times to pay you, as this will undoubtedly cause brand damage for you and the whoever you use for the credit controller, not to mention wasting a lot of time and money. So if you've got people who already need an ambulance, you know, talk to them yourself. Don't just pass them off onto your new credit control service provider. And that's why we developed some of the content that I just showed you now. And also our cash flow management coaching is a great way to drill down even further to make sure you have the best systems in place to free up your cash flow. So here's a few examples of companies that you could contact for credit checks for new customers. Remember, end of the day, if you're taking on a new customer at the moment, you don't want to inherit another firm's non-paying customer in the current climate. Now, some of these providers offer subscription services, some of them one-off services, and I certainly know that Citago also offer invoice finance, which can be a quick way of getting some cash into your business if you need to. But they all offer credit checking of various levels, and credit checking should be a standard part of your onboarding process, and that's why it's included in our cash management service, a review of that. So very important to credit check any new clients. So we talked about best practice with your debtors and how to avoid working with people who can't pay you. Now it's time to talk about what you need to do going forward from here to maximise your own cash flow. Some of these concepts you may have heard before, especially if you're on one of our earlier business continuity planning webinars. If this is you, then please listen for some distinctions and please make some notes about the actions you need to take from now in the future. I often think you can't hear something. So firstly, we'll take a quick example explaining how to calculate your cash conversion cycle and impact shortening it can have on the cash in your bank account. We'll then take a look at the 101 cycle, linking the cash invested in a business to the profits generated, which then leads to cash being received and then to owners either drawing it out of the business or reinvest. We'll take a look at the 7 causes of poor cash flow, how you can get some quick wins, and then what assistance you might be able to get from your bank. And then we'll do a quick recap of the government support on offer at the moment, together with yesterday's announcement. So one of the most important ways to improve your business is to shorten your cash conversion cycle. In other words, get your cash in quicker. What's critical in times of crisis is that all businesses speed up their cash conversion cycle so that the economy keeps working. Paying your suppliers more slowly just creates problems for other businesses who most likely are suffering as much as you, and the whole system will just grind to a halt. So it's really important that we try and speed up payments and shorten our cash conversion cycle where we can. So let's take a look at an example of a wholesaler, obviously stock-based. For service companies, just think of stock as your WIP and the payment of stock as your payroll. But in this example, a wholesaler buys stock from the suppliers and on average must pay the suppliers 45 days after buying the stock. Stock doesn't sell the moment it comes into the warehouse. Some stock sells quickly, other takes longer, and eventually some of the stock has to be discounted to get it out the door at all. So on average, stock's held for 60 days. When the stock is sold, they provide credit terms to the customers, but a number of customers aren't observing those credit terms, and on average, it takes those customers 60 days to pay. So with this information, we can now calculate the cash conversion cycle. So we've got 60 days average stock holding, plus the 60 days to get paid by the customers, less the 45 days credit provided by the suppliers, which gives us 75 days cash conversion cycle, i.e. to convert the inputs into cash. So in different times such as this, we'd need to ensure we've got a plan in place to shorten this cash conversion cycle. And this is certainly a process we'd recommend you do as part of your current business continuity plan. Using the numbers from your most recent management accounts, you or we can work out the above numbers and calculate your cash conversion cycle. And then from there, we can discuss how we can work together to shorten this and free up more cash. And just to sort of illustrate this, for example, if you had a business with a £500,000 turnover and debtors of 50,000 at the moment, a 10-day reduction in your cash conversion cycle would be worth nearly £14,000. And that's certainly an amount of cash that any business could do with at the moment. So we certainly recommend you incorporate a review of your cash conversion cycle as part of the business continuity plan or forecast, cash flow forecast, so as to free up as much cash flow as possible. So another area of focus to improve your cash flow needs to be on your business 101 cycle in these difficult times. As we often say, there's a massive, massive difference between profit and cash. Profit is what you pay tax on. Cash is the oxygen your business needs to survive. But what is important here is that as well as improving your cash conversion cycle, you make plans to maximize your profit and at the same time finance your business correctly. So let's just walk through the 101 cycle. So starting at the top, as an owner, you introduce cash into the business to buy assets. You might also borrow some cash to purchase those assets. And those assets are then used to generate profit, whether that's a machine, whether that's employing people. How you increase profit is to improve your revenue or sales. Obviously very difficult in these challenging times, but can still be achieved. You can also increase profit by increasing the margin or efficiency within the business or trimming overhead expenses. So now is a good time to be looking closely at potential new revenue lines, potential new customers. I'm sure we've all heard this phrase, a pivot in your sales strategy, or what you can do to avoid losing customers. At the same time, you ought to be looking at how you can improve your margins via efficiency gains, better purchasing, reduction in errors and wastage, or simply discontinuing with products or services that have got a poor margin for you. Once you've derived your profit, you need to turn that into cash, and profitable businesses can and do go bust at times like this. You need to be looking at how you can maximize your cash flow using strategies to get paid quicker, reduce the stock you hold or the work in progress, or by negotiating better payment terms with your suppliers. Now is not a time to be slow or lenient in your debt collection. We need that money to keep spinning around in the economy. And likewise, you need to be very careful about reordering things, especially stock for your business. Can you operate with less stock? Are there items that are likely to be in short supply? So do you actually need to increase them? Other areas to help you improve your cash flow are through better terms with your financiers. Can you go interest only on a loan, for example? But we'll cover a bit more about finance in a minute. And likewise, there are many tax concessions available right now. So you want to make sure you can access them. And again, we'll just talk about them a little bit later. That's the business 101 cycle: money going in, profit being generated. From the profit, we then collect the cash, and then it's up to the owners if they take the cash out or reinvest it back into the business. So, the 7 causes of poor cash flow. Firstly, accounts receivable process. So this is your whole billing and collections process, and it starts even before you raise an invoice with your terms and conditions. So getting this process right is really crucial. Next, your accounts payable process. So look at your business, who can order what for your business, what payment terms are acceptable for you. Decide whether you want to take early payment discounts when they're offered, things like that to consider there. Your inventory and WIP process. So, what stock levels do you hold? At what point do you start reordering? What's the process behind that? How often do you review and bill your WIP? Especially if you're a service company. Service companies don't have stock, but they do have time that's been expended on projects that needs to get billed. Is there any way that you can bill that quicker? Your debt and capital structure. Do you require more investment in the business? have you got assets financed correctly? For example, is the length of the loan secured in your machinery too short, too long? Is the interest rate competitive? Could you actually refinance it? Do you have some machinery that's just sat there that maybe you could raise some finance against? Overheads being too high. Have you got the right people in the right roles? Are you kind of leaking time and resources? Have you reviewed your overheads in the last 12 months? Quite often when you just sit down and look at the costs going through your business, you can find things where you can save some money on. Gross profit margin too low. Are you doing a lot of rework on your WIP? So that can be a manufacturing business or a service business. Are people making errors and you're having to correct them? Is that costing you time and money? Have you reviewed your suppliers' prices recently? Can you get better deals elsewhere? And then finally, your sales are too low to support the business's overheads. So what's the best way to increase your sales? Think about that. Think about customer retention, upselling, cross-selling, increasing transaction frequency, things like that. So all of these are the 7 causes of poor cash flow. And we've got extensive resources that we can share with you as part of our cash flow management coaching service that you can implement these ideas quickly and effectively. It involves a full review of each of these 7 causes so that together we can make a plan to free up as much cash as possible for you. So getting some runs on the board quickly. How do we pull all of this together in a meaningful way in our current climate and into the future, of course? Well, outsource credit management where you can. Be careful here though, as if you suddenly enlist the services of a credit controller or debt collector with customers who are highly unlikely to be able to pay you, you risk, severe damage to your brand. So if you already have a credit manager, then using them for your customers, should be able to pay during these difficult times. Don't let those customers use the current crisis as an excuse not to pay though. If you don't currently use an outsourced credit controller, this is something we recommend that you certainly look at implementing as part of your long-term commitment to your overall credit management. In either case, you're most likely going to need to deal directly with the customers who can't pay you. And like we said before, show them that empathy. Be very empathetic with those customers and use the guides and scripts that we've shown you and that we'll send out afterwards. Revise your terms of trade and your proposals. Make sure you don't perpetuate any poor practices at the moment into the future. Once again, we've got plenty of ideas we can share with you on a one-to-one basis as part of any cash flow management coaching service. And the strategies you adopt here need to be tailored to your particular business, of course. Then remember to look at your billing process. Get customers onto repeating or automated invoicing where you can, so that you're never slow in getting your invoices out. Consider if it's possible to create contracts with your clients with more regular invoicing, whether that's a deposit on acceptance of a proposal or interim invoicing or progress payments if appropriate. If you've additional or out of scope work, make sure you communicate that early and get an acceptance from your customer in advance of doing any of that work, so as to avoid a complaint or invoice query or dispute after the work has been completed. Also check that you've revised your price list to ensure that the margins you expect are being preserved. A great way to do this is to use any time you have at home now to look at the last few jobs you've done to identify if the returns you're getting match what you expected when you issued your quote. Likewise, if you're, say, in the retail or hospitality, you can use this time to review your margins and pricing and really get into the detail and make sure you're getting best deals there. With so much cloud-based technology, now is a great time to be looking at how you can use automation to free up your time and your cash flow. As well as repeating invoices, consider how you can move your proposal or quoting process to a paperless and online option. And also with payments, there are great providers out there of direct debit payments these days. But last by no means least, take a look at your management controls and procedures about spending and invoicing. For example, set limits around what stock or products can be reordered, who can order what and up to what level. Consider how you can reduce levels of stock or improve any efficiencies in any of your operations. Whatever you do, don't keep working for customers who don't pay. At the end of the day, you're running a business, and right now you need to reduce your risk wherever you can. Often one of the highest overheads in a business can be interest costs to financiers. And if you add the principal repayments to that interest, that can be a massive drain on the business's bank balance. So here's a list of ways that the banks or your financiers might be able to help you. At the moment, you might be able to negotiate an increase in your overdraft facility just to help you through the next few months. Review and extend trade credit, that may be possible. Like I said earlier, asset finance funding. You may have something on finance which you could refinance. Alternatively, you may have equipment or machinery which isn't currently financed that you could raise some finance against. Loan repayment holidays, deferment of repayments, or see if they're willing to go into interest only terms. If you don't ask, you don't get. Extension of term lending. So, if you've got a 3-year loan at the moment, could you renegotiate that to a 5, 6, 7, 8-year loan, just to reduce those monthly outgoings. And obviously personally short-term mortgage holidays, right there for 3 months, and even just stretching your payments, for some things that you might just use a debit card for. See if you can get a business credit card, and at least you'll get a little bit more wriggle room with when you have to pay that. So now just to quickly recap what our government has put out there for support and the tax considerations. So the deferral of VAT to the end of the financial year. So this is any payment that falls due between now and the 30th of June can be deferred until the end of the tax year. Please note it's payments and not returns. So this is for basically any VAT returns up to the end of April, because that April payment will be due on the 7th of June under normal circumstances. The coronavirus job retention scheme, which is the furloughed workers, the portal went live on that yesterday, and certainly lots of people have been accessing that. So it's up to £2,500 per month, plus the employer's national insurance and the minimum employer's pension contribution. If you are claiming the employment allowance, you cannot claim the employer's NI until the employment allowance has been used up. And directors, including sole directors, can be furloughed, but they just can't carry on any commercial work for the company. The CBILS, as they become known, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, so loans which are interest-free and fee-free for 12 months. Now, no personal guarantees for loans of up to £250,000. For loans above this, personal guarantees are required for the amount above £250,000, the full amount. And loans are generally being offered in the region of up to 2 times your annual wage bill or 25% of turnover, just as a rough guide. Business rate holidays and grants for the retail, hospitality and leisure business for the year. The rates grants, lots of people getting these at the moment, are lots of stories of getting them very quickly. So for businesses that operate from premises that pay little or no business rates due to being eligible for small business rate relief, it's £10,000. And then for businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, rateable value of less than 51,000 will get a grant of up to 25,000. The self-employed income support scheme. So this is for people who have trading profits of less than 50,000 in 18-19, or averaged less than 50,000 for the 18-19 and preceding 2 tax years. So this will allow them to get up to £2,500 each month for 3 months, and it will be paid in June. They also increased the working tax credit and universal tax credit by £20 a week, and did some changes to statutory sick pay, allowing self-employed people to claim that through universal credit, but also anybody in a business. Generally there's a waiting period, but they've actually said no waiting period. From day one you can claim statutory sick pay, and on top of that the business will actually be able to reclaim it. And then yesterday's announcement was about the fund and Innovate UK grants. So the Futures Fund is a £500 million fund created in partnership with the British Business Bank. The government, 250 million, and eligible businesses will be able to access loans between 125,000 and 5 million, but these must be backed by private investors, and to be eligible, businesses must have raised at least £250,000 from private third-party investors in the last 5 years. And then further to that one, they announced £750 million of support for R&D projects for small and medium-sized businesses, which will be made available through Innovate UK grants and loan scheme. Now, obviously, be aware that the grants being offered, the job retention scheme, self-employed income support scheme, these are all taxable. And the reason they're taxable is because the support that's being offered is to cover some of the costs of running your business. So you can also get a tax deduction for those costs. And obviously any loans or deferred tax payments under the VAT deferral tax scheme or via HMRC's time to pay arrangements will still need to be paid at some point in the future. So next steps. We've set out some mindsets you need to have in these difficult times. You know, be empathetic, have a backbone and a heart around your debt collecting, and how to avoid shying away from selling. It is okay to sell, you know, so long as you're providing solutions. We've shared best practice around credit control and other debtor collection, and showed you a guide and scripts you can use, and we'll happily share them with you. And we've covered how to free up as much cash flow as possible by looking closely at your cash flow conversion cycle in your Business 101 model. We took a look at the 7 causes of poor cash flow and how you can get some quick runs on the board to improve cash flow, including what support is available from the banks. And we've also shared in general terms what support is currently out there from the government. So now it's essential that you decide what you're going to do. As we've said before, clearly doing nothing is not an option. Now's the time to put the oxygen mask on yourself and make a plan to get through this crisis. Even if that plan involves closing your business, you're far better off to make that decision sooner rather than later to preserve what cash you can. And part of that planning is to surround yourself with experts, and we're here to help. Remember, focus on what you can do. And with this in mind, we've developed a guide to credit control and some detailed scripts for the debtor management that you can all have for free, which I've said before. And what I also want to share with you now is how we can help support you even further if you so wish. You know, as we've said before, we can and we want to help you in these challenging times. with all of our clients, our recommended strategy is to complete a business continuity plan. And we've been receiving great feedback about how helpful this process has been to people. So if you haven't done your business continuity plan, now's the time to do this, as it will form a great foundation from which to build your cash flow improvement strategy. The two options we've got here. The first one, meet with us online weekly for between 60 to 90 minutes a week for 4 weeks. The first thing we'll do is review and finalise your business continuity plan and then put it into action. This will give you peace of mind that you have an action plan in place and maximising all the support options available to you, and that you know your current financial situation and how you will manage through this crisis. One of the biggest causes of failure in business is failure to implement. And by meeting regularly over 4 weeks, we'll make sure you stay on track and implement that action plan. Second option here is that we can share the plan and template guide with you so you can complete the first draft of the plan on your own. And then we'll have an online meeting with you for 60 to 90 minutes to finalise that plan. Obviously, this option would suit people who feel comfortable preparing plans themselves and are not inundated with other things to do right now. Obviously, the risk with this approach is that with everything else going on right now, you may not get round to doing that. Now, for those of you who have already done your business continuity plan, we would recommend that you complete a cash flow forecast. Many of you are using these forecasts as a basis to support finance applications to the bank. And of course, you should be acting like a bank too, in that you've advanced money to your business and need to be sure you'll get repaid. So preparing a cash flow forecast together allows us to share with you many ideas to improve your cash flow in these challenging times. A combination of finance, government and tax assistance and cash flow improvement tactics, all things that are needed here. And your cash flow forecast is that step that identifies where the improvements can be made. Having an initial cash flow management coaching session will help us to show you how to improve and implement the ideas from the forecast. Consider it an opportunity for us to show you the full extent of what is possible in your business. We're only asking you to commit to one session at this stage. Obviously, we appreciate it's difficult to commit to spending money at a time of crisis, and that's why we've made a cost reduction of 50% off our normal rates for all of these. And we expect that through a combination of business continuity planning, cash flow forecasting, and cash management coaching, the cash flow benefits would be far greater than any of our fees. And more importantly, it's about helping you as quickly as possible. So, has anybody got any questions? Okay, well, somebody did send one in earlier, basically saying that they've lost, a huge chunk of their income, nearly 75%, and the business can't operate right now. What can they realistically do about the cash flow? Well, I'd say, firstly, it's really important to establish what your business is going to look like when it can be reopened. So I'd recommend doing a business continuity plan and a forecast. Obviously, with a plan, you'll have a roadmap of what you need to get done and by when. And with a forecast, you'll be able to see what your true cash position is likely to be over the next few weeks and months, down on paper, right in front of you, staring you in the face. And these two documents can then be used to apply for a loan with the bank if you need to. And if you need help with any of that, then please do contact us. Okay, somebody's just asked, appreciate the solutions you're offering, but I simply cannot pay for these right now. Okay, first and foremost, our thoughts are with business owners, like you, who are obviously suffering right now. We've got clients ourselves facing similar challenges with their business, which is obviously then impacting our business. We've reduced our fees by 50% to make them more affordable. but our commitment to you is that we're here to help. So please don't let a lack or ability to pay now be a barrier, as I'm sure we could find a way to work with you. At the end of the day, our clients are our business and we don't want to let you down. So, please talk to us. I'm sure we can work something out. Okay, somebody's just come in with another one. Do you provide expertise for applying the loans from the Futures Fund and Innovate UK? It was just announced yesterday, the Futures Fund, and we haven't at the moment had time to really look to see exactly what would be required. But also the Futures Fund is going to need match funding from a private investor. So what we do know is that a private investor is going to have to put in some money, and then the loan from the government would be on a convertible loan basis. So it would be pretty much going out for your investment rounds. So you're going to need a plan, financials, all of that sort of thing. So yeah, we can certainly help pull together business plans and three-way forecast, P&L balance sheet and cash flow forecast to support any sort of investment pack that may be required. But yeah, please do get in touch if you're thinking about applying for the Futures Fund or Innovate UK grants. Okay, well, before we end the webinar today, I just want to say thank you for making the time to attend the webinar. Also appreciate time is very valuable right now. I certainly hope we've given you plenty of ideas to think about and some clear options of how we can support you survive this crisis. And if you've got any more questions, then please feel free to contact me. Contact details are up on the screen there. But finally, I thought I'd share a parting thought with you. When you show deep empathy towards others, their energy goes down, active energy replaces it. That's when you get more creative in solving problems. So let's make sure we approach our own cash flow challenges with empathy to get through this difficult together. Thank you, stay safe, and don't forget to give us your feedback. Thank you.